students. So here we go with the next video of module 4. The previous video we have seen completed classes and objects, how to define the classes, how to define the objects in Python. So we'll continue our discussion with classes and functions in Python, how the classes and functions work. So Python is object-oriented programming language, but it is possible to use it as a functional programming also. In the sense, what you can also have both procedure-oriented programming as well as object-oriented programming also. So there are two types of functions here. One is pure function, another one is modifier. So what is the difference is, pure function takes objects as arguments and does some work without modifying any of the original argument. Whatever the contents of the objects will be there, they will be as it is. They cannot be modified in case of pure functions. Whereas the modifier function is the one which modifies the original argument, original objects. What are the attributes are there for particular objects can be modified using the modifiers. So in practical applications, development of a program will follow a technique called prototype and patch. We will discuss about this later. What is the prototype and what is the planned or patch of the technique is. So a solution to a complex problem starts with a simple prototype and incrementally dealing with the complications. Means we will start with a small program. Later when we go on adding the different things to it, it will become a complicated. Okay. So to illustrate this classes and functions, we will take an example of time here, which is another user-defined type of class. Okay, we'll define a class called time that records the time of the day. Definition somewhat looks like this: class time and just a pass here. We can create a new time object and assign attributes for hours, minutes and seconds. So for example, here time is the object and this is the class name time. So time dot hours equals to 11, time dot minutes equals to 59, time dot seconds equals to 30. Like this we can assign. So pictorial we can define the subject diagram like this. So hour, minute, time, and hour, minute, second. So they are the attributes, and the time is the class, and this time is the object here. Okay. So now we'll clearly define what is the pure function. So two versions of add time we'll see here. We are adding two time objects. Okay, sum of the two times. So here they will demonstrate two kinds of functions, pure and modifiers. Okay, this is the function what we are dealing with. So add time is the one function which will take two objects as the parameters. Okay, so movie end time equals to time, one object we are creating as a movie end time. So movie end time dot hours equals to t1 dot hours plus t2 dot hours, adding hours. Here we are adding minutes, that is movie end time dot minutes equals to t1 dot minutes plus t2 dot minutes. We are adding minutes. Similarly we are adding the seconds here. Okay, now the whatever the hours, minutes and seconds of t1 are added with the hours, minutes and seconds of t2, and they are stored in the object with the name movie end time. Okay, so when you return movie end time, it is returning an object here. So you can observe here we have not modified anything here. Within the object we have not modified anything. We are just taken the value from that and we are adding it with another object's attribute. Okay, so this is add time, how it works. Just taking two objects, adding the hours, minutes and seconds, and the result is stored in another time object. Okay, so here function creates a new time object, that is movie end time. What is it? Initializes its attributes and returns a reference to the new object. So this is what we call the pure function, because it does not, as I said, does not modify any of the objects passed to it as a parameter, and it has no side effects such as displaying a value or getting user input, nothing. So just takes two time objects and returns another time object. Okay, I will create two time objects. Start contains the start time of a movie, and duration contains the run time of the movie. Add time figures out when the movie will be done. Okay, so this is the complete program for that. Add time added here, the same one, and print time will print that particular time. Okay, so just one start object we are creating, start object of the time class. So assign some values to the hours, minutes and seconds, 9, 14, 30. Similarly, duration we have taken duration of the movie is for an sake of example. Okay, hours we have assigned 3 minutes 35 and seconds 0. So it is 3 hours 35 minutes, and it will tell us when the movie can end. Okay, so this is the output 12, 49, 30. So let us try to execute this particular program. Okay, I will take this is the program what I am speaking about. We have defined the class time here. Attributes of the time are hour, minute and second. We are printing the time here. Okay, and adding the two time objects as I said. Somewhat difference is there. I will speak about the difference later. What is the difference in case of modifiers we will discuss about. Just assume that we are adding two times and returning another time object. Fine. So if you execute this, okay, this is what 10, 34, 25 is the start time, and 2, 12, 41 is the end time. After adding, it will be 12, 47 and 6 minutes, 6 seconds. Okay, this is how it will be added. Then pure function. There are cases where the result is not correct. How it is not correct is sometimes when the number of seconds is more than 60, 1 minute is increased. That similarly, when the number of minutes are more than 60, 1 hour is increased the hours. So that is not we have not taken care of that in the previous example. So to make out that, we have to go for modification. Okay, so that is what I said, prototype and patch. So at the beginning we start with some simple program. When we go on modifying it, we will get a complexity. So here what we have to do to tackle that particular problem, when the seconds increase more than 60 and when the minutes increase more than 60, we have to apply some thing here. That is, while movie and time dot seconds is greater than equals to 60, we have to subtract 60 seconds from the seconds, and we have to add 1 minute to the minutes. Similarly, for minutes, we have to subtract 60 minutes from the minutes, and we have to increase the hours by 1. So that is how we can do it. So in the previous program what I showed you, the same thing we have done. Here we have assigned a sum as a one object for the time. We have added here, and we are taking it. If sum dot second is greater than equals to 60, minus the 60 seconds from the second and increase the minute by 1. Similarly for minute, okay, subtract 60 minutes from minute and increase the hour by 1, then return the sum. Okay, this is what the modification we have to do. So to reduce the problem of increasing the seconds and minutes greater than 60. Okay, so this is what so that is what about the pure functions. Pure functions just takes the objects and does not modifies anything in it. You can process between the two objects, but within the object you cannot do any modification. So then the modifiers comes. when we need a function to modify one or more of the objects as it looks at the parameter. Usually caller keeps a reference to the object it passes, so any changes the function makes are visible to the caller also. So functions that work this way are called modifiers. We have defined function called increment, which adds a given number of seconds to a time object. So this is one. We have taken out one function called as increment here, so which takes time and seconds as the parameters. Time is the time object and seconds is the number of seconds to be added to the existing time. So what we have done, time dot seconds equal to time dot seconds plus seconds. There is a possibility of increasing the time seconds more than 60. To tackle that, we have done while time dot seconds is greater than 60, decrease 60 seconds from seconds and increase the minutes by 1. Similarly, when minutes increases more than 60, the same thing, we have to subtract 60 minutes from minutes and increase the hours by 1. So this is continued until we get a proper time. That is why we have taken a while here. Okay, then print time will just print the time. Okay, as you can say, print percentage d, d dot hours, d dot minutes, d dot seconds. Okay, before increment, see what we have passed here. Show time is 9:14:30. Okay, 9:14:30. This is the time what before the increments the seconds. When you increment the seconds by 5, we are just incrementing, or we are just adding 5 seconds to the existing time, then it is 35. So you have to just check this particular program whether it works for this increased number of seconds and minutes. Just give this increment more than 60 here, you will get to know whether they will work correctly. Okay, so next concept here is prototype development versus planning. Prototype development means, as I said initially, prototype and batch. Prototype development means initially we start developing a particular program. We start developing a simple program, rough draft we will take, we call it as a prototype, that perform basic calculation, but it will not do a corrected clause. Okay, we test it on a few cases, we will get some errors, we will get some logical errors or other kind of errors. Later what we do, we try to modify them. We go on modifying the particular program. So this approach can be effective, but it can lead to code that is unnecessarily complicated, since it deals with many special cases, and it is unreliable, because as we come across one error, to remove that error we will add one more line of code. Again one more error comes, to remove that we will add one more line of code. Like this, it will be somewhat complicated. Unnecessarily we are adding the number of lines of codes into the program. So we may not be able to get the possibility of errors, or we may not be able to find all types of errors. So an alternative for this is a planned development, in which high level insight into the problem can make the programming much easier. So before developing the program, we have to plan. We call it as planned development. So how it works is, just take the example of the time object itself. It's a really 3-digit number in base 60, isn't it? 3-digit in the sense what? Hours, minutes and seconds. 3 digits, hours, minutes and seconds. The second component is ones column, the minute component is 60s column, and hour component is 3600s column, because hours component is in case of 12. Okay, 1 to 12 are the hours. Minute component is 60, 1 to 60, but the seconds second is 60s column, minute is 60s column, and hours is 3600s column. So when we wrote this add time and increment functions previously, we were effectively doing addition in base 60. That is, if the seconds increase more than 60, we are subtracting 60 from it, and we are increasing the minutes by 1. Similarly, when minutes increase by 60, by subtracting 60 from the minutes and increasing the hour by 1. This is what we call base 60, which is we had to carry from one column to the next. So what this observation suggests is whole problem we can convert a time object into a single number and take advantage of the fact that the computer knows how to do arithmetic with numbers. So means what, total time whatever is there we can convert it into a single number. We can convert the total time into a single number. Vice versa, we can also convert a single number into a time. Okay, let us see this. Okay, this is what one function we have written here converts the time object into integer. This particular function converts the total time into one single integer. What we have done, minutes equal to time dot hour into 60 plus time dot minute. Okay, 1 hour equals to 60 minutes, so multiply the hours into 60, add the minutes to it, you will get a minutes here. For seconds you have to multiply the minutes into 60, 1 minute equal to 60 seconds, so multiply it and add the second to it, and you will get a total seconds. So one integer object, one integer value we get from the time here in terms of seconds. So now convert this integer to time. We have got in seconds, we have to convert this seconds into a particular time object. So how? So here it takes the seconds as the parameter. We are creating one time object. So minutes comma time dot seconds equals to div mode seconds comma 60. So what this div mode does is, it is like a mod operation. Okay, division mod. So it will divide the two numbers given here, or total seconds divided by 60 it does, and gives the result in terms of tuple or tuple here. Tuple means, assume that it is x comma y. Numerator and denominator will get here. After division, whatever will get numerator and denominator. Okay. Similarly for hours, time dot hours comma time dot minutes, div mode minutes comma 60. Same here. So total minutes divided by 60 is 1, and we will get this one, hours and minutes here. Okay, numerator and denominator. Fine. So that is what we will get a time object. So they are stored in, you can see here the seconds are stored, here the hours are stored, here the minutes are stored. If you return the time object, it will be converted into a time, specified time. You can print this time using the print time function. Okay, you can use these two functions, whatever the time to int and into time we have done. These two can be used for adding the two time objects like this. Define add time t1 comma t2 seconds equals to time to int, converting that time into integer in both cases, and return int to time. So you have got in terms of seconds here, and giving this seconds as input to the int to time function, again it will be converted to time object. Okay. So this is prototype development. This is planning, we say. This is planning. So this is the complete program. For that. So that is the end of what? Classes and functions. In the next class we see classes and methods.